Life inside the Bunker household existed in a delicate balance, stitched together by routines that were both comforting and chaotic. Each morning began with familiar arguments, comedic misunderstandings, and hurried preparations, revealing that beneath all the laughter and sarcasm flowed a deep concern for one another. But the household's emotional ecosystem shifted the moment Stephanie came into their lives. Her presence created new rhythms, new tensions, and new opportunities for growth, not only for herself, but for the adults trying to raise her. At school, preparations were underway for Parent and Children's Night, a seemingly innocent event that stirred powerful emotions within Stephanie. Her classmates chatted excitedly about duets with Mother's comic poetry, recitals, violin solos, and eccentric monologues. But Stephanie remained silent, painfully aware that she lacked parents to stand beside her. Her classmates possessed what she feared she never would, living supporting origins. Even though Archie and Edith treated her like family, she could not erase the feeling of being temporary. This insecurity became the invisible force guiding her decisions. Edith, recognizing her hesitation, eagerly volunteered to perform with her. She sang almost comically, slightly off-key, throwing herself into practice with enthusiasm born from maternal longing. She wanted desperately to fill the emotional void Stephanie carried, hoping that laughter could plaster over absence. Archie reacted predictably with irritation, sarcasm, and excuses to avoid the event. But below, his bluster hid vulnerability. Public settings forced him to acknowledge emotional investment. Children's concerts had always frightened him because they magnified parental pride, and pride in turn betrayed love. And love, for Archie, always carried the risk of loss. Their rehearsals filled the house with discordant melodies, infuriating Archie. But they also filled it with something rare, unself-conscious joy. The household, once rigid in its routines, vibrated with playful energy. Stephanie, embarrassed yet excited, found herself smiling without command. Even the complaints were comforting. They were proof that her presence mattered enough to disrupt. Then, crisis struck. Edith lost her voice. To the household, this was not merely inconvenient, it was symbolic. Edith's voice was the emotional engine of the home. Her laugh warmed rooms, her songs softened tensions, her gentle reprimands settled arguments. When that voice disappeared, silence thundered. Stephanie panicked, worried not only about the school event, but also about the fragility of the woman she had grown to love. Physical illness often triggers emotional panic in those who fear abandonment. Archie, forced into urgency, rushed to retrieve medicine, muttering about ancient family anecdotes of near-fatal silence. His humor thinly masked fear, with Edith unable to perform the spotlight turned painfully towards Stephanie. Terrified yet determined, she considered performing alone. She weighed humiliation against disappointment and chose bravery. Archie refused to attend, claiming dread of children's performances, but the deeper truth was that he feared witnessing vulnerability. The very thought of watching Stephanie tremble on stage felt like an indictment of his own inadequacy. He feared he would not know how to comfort her if she failed. Stephanie performed alone and triumphed. She won first prize. The auditorium echoed with applause, not only recognizing her talent, but affirming her worth. Yet when she returned home, eyes bright with pride, she found Archie absent. The father figure she wished to impress had robbed himself of the chance. Only later, ashamed, did he apologize. This moment illuminated a universal truth: children require witnesses. Achievements feel hollow when not validated by those we love. Soon after, romantic turmoil entered the household with the arrival of Albrecht Klemmer and his fiancée Judith. Their relationship teetered under the weight of nostalgia. Judith suspected that Albrecht admired Edith too much, interpreting every affectionate gesture as emotional infidelity. Edith, unaware of her effect, became the unintended rival. The scene escalated into dramatic accusations, tears, and panic, revealing a psychological pattern common among adults approaching marriage: fear of replacement. Judith feared becoming a second version rather than a first choice. Only Edith's insight: he loves you. Because you restored equilibrium. But serenity never lasted long. One late night, Stephanie woke with severe stomach pain. Edith immediately sensed danger. Maternal instinct rarely hesitates. Archie, comedic in his attempts to diagnose, initially minimized symptoms, attributing them to indigestion or junk food. But when fever rose, they summoned the doctor. The young physician, once a mischievous child, now confidently diagnosed appendicitis requiring immediate surgery. Archie resisted, insisting on second opinions, distrusting new medical practices, and worrying about finances even as time ticked toward rupture. This hesitation nearly cost Stephanie her life. When the appendix burst, ambulance lights sliced through the sleepy neighborhood, illuminating both urgency and guilt. Archie paced anxiously while Edith whispered prayers. Guilt flooded him when the doctor emerged with news that the surgery had succeeded. Archie attempted humor to mask remorse, but Edith saw through him. He admitted for the first time in years that he had been wrong. It was a humble confession, monumental in its vulnerability. Then came Stephanie's 10th birthday. The hospital room transformed into a makeshift celebration, cake candles, soft singing. When asked her birthday wish, she whispered that she wanted her father to be there. The statement broke the room's warmth. No amount of affection could erase bloodline longing. Emotional displacement hurts even in the presence of love. Returning home, the household began noticing missing objects, socks, egg timers, war medals. Each disappearance sparked suspicion. At school, items vanished from a teacher's desk and reappeared in Stephanie's possession. The principal summoned Edith and Archie, presenting evidence. Archie defended her, fiercely insisting innocence. But when they searched her room, hidden among clothes and keepsakes, they found everything: the stolen items, the borrowed memories, the symbolic anchors. Confronted, Stephanie confessed. She feared the household would someday send her away, that she needed pieces of them to remember. Her logic was heartbreaking. Possession equaled permanence. Archie's harsh words about temporariness had burrowed into her psyche. Children translate possibility into inevitability. Adults forget that joking about abandonment can fracture trust. Archie's punishment was stern but wrapped in love. No TV restricted outings, bland food. He used discipline as proof of responsibility. Edith offered emotional repair. The dual approach mirrored ideal guardianship structure and compassion. When it was over, Stephanie promised never again to take what was not hers. She asked timidly if she could stay forever. Archie muttered awkward assurances. That was enough. As winter settled, the household found a new normal. Evening laughter returned. Edith teased Archie about his cold feet. He grumbled theatrically. Stephanie began sleeping soundly again. Emotional storms leave behind clarity. The crisis, though painful, had strengthened their bond. Yet the narrative's truest lesson revealed itself quietly. Family is constructed not through blood, but through choice, sacrifice, and empathy. Archie learned that loving a child meant more than feeding and sheltering it required vulnerability. Edith learned that guiding trauma demanded patience and unwavering presence. Stephanie learned that trust could root itself even on uncertain soil. The household remained imperfect, full of arguments, sarcasm, singing, and misplaced socks. But within that imperfection, something miraculous unfolded: belonging. In the quiet days that followed, subtle shifts began to reveal themselves throughout the Bunker household. Stephanie started waking earlier for school, carefully packing her books with meticulous precision, as if order within her backpack might restore order within her heart. She lingered in the hallway near Archie before leaving each morning, not asking for permission, but waiting for acknowledgement. A simple grunt of approval or a distracted wave of the hand became her invisible tether to belonging. Archie pretended not to notice, sipping coffee with exaggerated nonchalance, but his glance often followed her out the window until she disappeared around the corner. At school, whispers flowed like smoke through hallways. Some classmates congratulated her for winning first prize at the Parent and Children's Night performance. Others snickered about her surgery, casting rumors about appendixes exploding like fireworks. Children often fear what they do not understand. But Stephanie's demeanor had changed. She carried herself with quieter dignity, tempered by the memory of hospital ceilings, anesthetic dreams, and the devastating realization that pain is unpredictable. Surviving surgery gave her a small yet profound strength. Every step she took afterward felt borrowed from fate. Meanwhile, Archie retreated into his own cycle of reflection. Sitting in his worn living room chair, he found himself thinking about fatherhood, not as a title, but as a responsibility. Memories of his daughter Gloria surfaced: her tantrums, her brilliance, the way she pushed and pulled affection-testing boundaries. With her, he had always been certain. She was his, unquestioned by blood or legality. With Stephanie, he feared the unpredictable shadows of custody, abandonment, and sudden loss. He had not chosen her arrival, yet he found himself choosing her every day. He replayed the moment when the doctor announced the appendix had burst. He remembered the cold sweat at the base of his neck, the tremor in his knees. In that terrible pause before the verdict, he understood the raw terror of love. When something becomes vital, the world becomes hostile. He swore quietly that he would never let hesitation jeopardize her safety again. But he would never admit this aloud. Vulnerability in his mind remained weakness. Edith sensed this silent evolution. She began leaving small notes on the refrigerator, reminding Archie of Stephanie's recital scheduled dental appointments and favorite snacks. She often signed them with playful hearts. Her emotional intelligence manifested not in direct confrontation, but in gentle nudging, the kind that invites growth rather than demands it. She understood that to love Archie was to translate his gruffness into affection. She hoped Stephanie would learn the same dialect. One Saturday morning, the household gathered in the kitchen for breakfast. Pancakes sizzled on the stove, and Edith hummed softly while flipping them. Stephanie poured orange juice with a careful hand glancing toward Archie, waiting for the inevitable joke about pulp and seeds. But that morning, Archie surprised everyone. Instead of grumbling, he asked Stephanie how she was feeling. The question weighed more than the words implied. Stephanie smiled shyly and answered that she felt better. Archie nodded, then added that he had read in the newspaper about unnecessary surgeries costing billions of dollars. Edith rolled her eyes, but there was relief in his tone. He was offering reassurance disguised as skepticism. Later that week, the principal from school telephoned, again requesting a follow-up meeting. Anxiety surged through the household. Had another theft occurred, had Stephanie been caught in another misunderstanding? But when they arrived, the principal praised her honesty. Returning the stolen objects had demonstrated maturity and courage. He noted that she had apologized sincerely, and the teacher had accepted. Archie's chest filled with pride, though his expression remained stern. As they left the office, he patted Stephanie lightly on the back, his touch awkward but full of meaning. Children learn affection through gestures, not declarations. In that moment, Stephanie felt seen. Outside, the school leaves swirled in the wind, signaling the arrival of autumn season of change. As they walked home, the sidewalk shimmered with crisp light. Edith spoke gently about forgiveness, encouraging Stephanie to speak openly whenever fears resurfaced. Archie remained silent, walking 2 steps ahead, yet slowing down whenever the girl fell behind. His body language betrayed what his voice refused to articulate. Over time, the emotional gravity of the stolen items faded, replaced by new household routines. In the evenings, Edith prepared dinners that reflected comfort, hearty soups, warm casseroles, homemade desserts. The smells infused the house with nostalgia, creating sensory memories that anchored Stephanie's heart. Food operates as emotional architecture. Through flavor, families construct belonging. Archie predictably complained about seasoning, then devoured seconds. This too was ritual. Some evenings, Stephanie sneaked into the living room to watch educational programming fulfilling the terms of her punishment. She found surprising enjoyment in documentaries about animals, machines, and early civilizations. She learned about tribal rituals of adoption, where families welcomed outsiders through ceremony, granting them new identity, new names. She wondered privately whether she too might someday feel initiated into permanence. Meanwhile, Archie struggled internally with the concept of discipline. He believed that structure shaped character, but he feared becoming tyrannical. He wanted Stephanie to learn responsibility without associating love with punishment. He attempted awkwardly to balance authority with warmth. Occasionally, he would ask about her homework or compliment her singing, then quickly pivot into complaints about taxes or television commercials. Emotional whiplash became part of the household lexicon. One evening, Mr. Clemmer and Judith visited again. This time, the atmosphere was lighter. They brought pastries and stories about wedding plans. Archie still grumbled, but less fiercely. When Judith mentioned feeling insecure about her image compared to Edith, Archie interjected unexpectedly. He explained in his blunt way that love had nothing to do with competition. He spoke about grief memory and moving forward. His words surprised even himself. Judith nodded quietly, her shoulders relaxing. Sometimes the least intentional statements become the most healing. Later that night, after the guests departed, Edith remarked that Archie had spoken beautifully. He shrugged, claiming he merely said what everyone was thinking, but his eyes softened. He understood insecurity intimately. He masked it under sarcasm, but insecurity shapes the human experience as profoundly as love. As weeks passed, hospital bills arrived, financial strain loomed. Archie blustered about insurance companies, government waste, and economic decline. But beneath his tirades lay fear, the fear of losing control, of failing to provide. Edith balanced the checkbook, quietly reassuring him that they would manage. She always believed that worry shrank when shared. Archie believed worry demanded fight, not surrender. One day, while cleaning, Edith found a small drawing Stephanie had hidden beneath her pillow. It depicted three figures standing together, hands intertwined, smiling, beneath a sun-labeled home. The drawing's innocence pierced Edith's heart. For Stephanie, home was no longer a building. It was the two people who argued, worried, laughed, and made pancakes. Edith folded the drawing carefully and returned it to its place. Understanding that children express emotional truths in colors, adults often forget how to see. Winter deepened. Snow draped the neighborhood in white hush. Warmth inside the household contrasted the chill outside. Archie complained about heating costs while surreptitiously increasing the thermostat. Stephanie spent afternoons writing in a diary, recording secrets she feared might overwhelm conversations. Her handwriting improved as her thoughts sharpened. She wrote about belonging, about recovery, about the moment she looked from the hospital bed to see Edith's teary smile. She wrote about Archie pacing outside her door at night, pretending to check the thermostat. A few days before Christmas, the family visited the laundromat. There they encountered Mr. Clemmer again this time, sharing news of his engagement ring. Their laughter echoed among washing machines, foaming detergent, and industrial dryers. Strangers smiled quietly at them, unintentionally witnessing a portrait of found family. Stephanie studied Archie's protective stance beside Edith, noticing how his body angled slightly toward her, shielding her subconsciously from potential threats. These micro gestures built trust brick by emotional brick. Back home on New Year's Eve, the family gathered around the television. Fireworks flickered on the screen, while outside distant echoes boomed across the city. Edith predicted good fortune. Archie predicted taxation increases. Stephanie predicted happiness. Their predictions reflected their personalities, shaped by trauma, responsibility, and hope. As midnight struck, Archie raised a glass awkwardly and clinked it against Stephanie's, pretending not to enjoy doing so. But his smile lingered longer than he intended. Months later, another minor crisis emerged when Stephanie came home saddened by a classmate's cruel comment. Children often weaponize words they do not understand. She retreated to her room feeling inferior, unwanted. Edith followed, offering reassurance through quiet stories of her own childhood insecurities. Archie hovered outside the door, listening, silently angry that someone had hurt her feelings. Emotional protection, he discovered, is not always physical. It sometimes requires patience. The next day, he walked Stephanie to school. At the gate, he pointed at the building and muttered something about big mouths owning small brains. Stephanie giggled. The comment did not erase pain, but it framed it differently. Humor became armor. Spring blossomed. Trees shed their skeletal outlines, replaced by vibrant leaves. The household shifted into lighter routines. Stephanie helped in the kitchen more frequently, learning recipes from Edith, each ingredient representing inheritance. Cooking transmitted cultural patterns, measuring affection in teaspoons and cups. One afternoon, while organizing old boxes, Stephanie discovered a faded photograph of Gloria as a teenager. She studied the expression, a familiar, stubborn smile, a flash of independence. Archie caught her looking, paused, and sighed. He admitted quietly that he missed his daughter. His voice cracked slightly. Stephanie placed the photograph gently beside him, offering silent solidarity. Lost, she realized, shapes love more deeply than presence. As summer approached, Stephanie spent more time outdoors, playing jump rope with neighborhood children. The rhythm of the ropes mirrored her heartbeat, steady, trusting, confident. When she returned home for dinner, she no longer hesitated before entering. She walked through the doorway as though she belonged, because she finally believed she did. Even Archie's punishment softened. He reduced restrictions, praising her improvements, though always with ironic grunts. He still complained about liver politics and television, but now he saved a slice of pie to share with Stephanie, pretending he didn't notice she ate the larger piece. This was love in disguise. Eventually, the stolen objects became distant memories. But the emotional truth remained: children cling to fragments when they fear disappearance. Stephanie no longer hoarded items. Instead, she began gifting things, drawings, origami animals, small knitted bracelets. She had learned that sharing solidifies permanence more than collecting. One night, as thunder cracked above Queen, Stephanie crawled into the living room, frightened by the storm. Archie, watching television, motioned gruffly for her to sit beside him. He did not offer hugs. He simply sat close enough that their shoulders touched. She leaned gently against him. The storm rumbled on, but she no longer feared it. When Edith entered the room, she paused, smiling quietly. She recognized the milestone when a child seeks comfort without asking, and an adult offers comfort without naming it. That is family.